How are you guys tonight? I hope you're doing great. Thank you so much for joining me. Type in the chat. Tell me where you're coming from. Okay, AJ, you're from Carrollton. Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to give everything I can, 45 minutes, and we're going to go through the 7 confidence boosters for women. And then afterwards, if you're looking for more, for some solutions, and I'm going to tell you how. So first of all, I want to welcome you guys for being here with me tonight on this Thursday night. I know it's beautiful outside, so thanks for taking your time to come and be with me. I am going to tell you some of the benefits that we're going to walk away from tonight. You're going to, first of all, identify ways that contribute to keeping you from moving forward and being your best self, how others contribute to doing that. And then you're also going to identify ways that you keep yourself stuck and aren't allowing yourself to be your best. And then most importantly, I think, is that you're going to walk away with an action plan, and you're going to have identified ways of what you are going to change so that you can live a life that's has even more fulfillment. So I hope you guys are ready to get started. All right, so who I am. First of all, I'm going to give you some great actionable content. So I want you to pay attention and be ready. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am Dr. Courtney Baker, and I am a speech pathologist, and I'm a business owner. I'm a speaker. I'm a wife and a mother of a little family right there. I'm formally trained as a speech language pathologist, and I began my practice in 2001, began practicing speech pathology. And I own my own company now, Kids Care Therapy. And honestly, it has not always been a rosy, easy, amazing experience. So I started, don't laugh at the hair. So I started my adult journey in this world by becoming a single teenage mom when I was just 19. And I had my son Landon just 6 months after I graduated from high school. And at that point, I really didn't see that life had much hope for me, or that I would have anything really to offer. I was waiting tables and I was doing double shifts. So I was working night shift, and sometimes I would work night and lunch, and sometimes I would work breakfast and lunch. And I was also on Medicaid and food stamps. And I don't know if you guys know this, but 98% of single teenage moms do not go on to get their college degree. So my goal at that time was to become not the statistic. I wanted to beat that stat and not only get my college degree, but I wanted to earn my doctorate as well. I just didn't know when I was going to be able to do it. So honestly, how did I go through the process of being a single teenage mom to a business owner of a crazy successful company? Well, without a doubt, through my own personal journey and finding confidence. I had nothing else. So fast forward, there we go. So here's the story. I got married when I was 20, and I moved to Illinois, where I did not know anyone. And I mean, other than my husband and his family. And I started school in junior college at about 6 months after I got married, so I could meet people, but I also wanted to get my education. And about 2 years into our marriage, my husband was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and that was really hard. It was a very rocky marriage at best, but when I found out some illegal things were going on in our home, I just knew I had to leave. And the day before our 3-year anniversary, I took my son and I just stepped out on a leap of faith, and I left. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. I had no family there. I didn't even have a car. And I had a friend who'd offered to let Landon and me live with her until I got my feet on the ground. So I decided to stay in Illinois, and there's Landon. So I decided to stay in Illinois where I lived with my friend, and I slept on her couch for a couple of weeks. And I'd saved up a little bit of money, and I rented a tiny duplex right there in the middle. That was our duplex. And I stayed in school in Illinois until I graduated with my master's degree in August of 2001. And my then fiance and Landon and I moved home and got my first job as a speech pathologist in Cedar Hill. So I worked for a year in the school district, and I felt like I wasn't making a big enough difference in the lives of the kids that I touched. And I also had a boss that was just absolutely horrendous to work for. So I made a split decision when I was in her office one day, and I was having my review, and it was horrible. And I just figured I was worth more than that, and I resigned right then and right there with no plan B. And I quickly got another job as a therapist doing pediatric home health, and I started at that agency in July of 2002. I'd just gotten married the month before, and we wanted to continue to expand our family. And we got pregnant right away, and I was at this agency, and I really loved what I did, and I felt like I'd found my true calling. I was able to set my own schedule, and I had great flexibility, and I loved my patients and the families that I worked with. And it was just all around a perfect fit. But then, about 4 months after I started working there, I went to the office and I overheard the owners talking about how they believed all the therapists, all the employees were replaceable. And I couldn't believe that. And then after I heard them say that, I'll never forget, there was an ice storm in February of 2003. And they closed the office and held everyone's check until the next payroll because they didn't run payroll. And I was pregnant. My husband, Jason, had just been laid off and then had just gotten a new job where he worked the night shift because I don't know if you remember, but obviously it was right after September 11th and the economy was horrible. And we had just bought our first home, and the first mortgage check was on its way to the bank. And the check was going to bounce to the mortgage company because they held my paycheck. So after they held my check and wouldn't pay, I just made a decision. And right then I decided I would start my own company. And I loved doing therapy in the home, but I didn't love that I wasn't employed somewhere where I wasn't valued and appreciated, much less that they were okay with holding my pay. And maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you don't feel valued or appreciated, or maybe it's even in a relationship, or honestly, anything in life. So that was in 2003 when I started Kids Care Therapy. And Kids Care is a pediatric home health care agency that started in this little house in Garland. And it was my partner at the time. It was her home. And we opened the doors for business on October 27th, 2003. And at the time that we opened, I was the only therapist, and I had 10 patients. And I had very little money in the bank and zero business knowledge. And before I started the company, everyone around me was discouraging me from doing it. Everyone except my husband. I found a business consultant that told me twice not to do it, but I couldn't be swayed. I knew I'd be successful if I could just get started. So I opened the doors, and right from the start, Kids Care was hit from all sides with everything that should have shut Kids Care down. And there were so many days that I wanted to quit. And my husband would come home from working the night shift, and he'd walk in the bedroom, and I'd be in bed just crying with the covers pulled over my head. And he would just pull the covers back and say, "Get up. You can't quit now. What'd you think? It'd be easy? If it was easy, everyone would do it. So get up. You got this." And because of that encouragement, I kept going. And today, over 12 years later, Kids Care has the privilege of serving close to 2,000 patients. And we have over 220 therapists and over 300 employees all over Texas. So really, that's the journey of Kids Care and how the company got started. So I don't know, does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. All right. So let's fast forward roughly about 20 years from being a single teenage mom, and I finally had the time to devote to furthering my education. And I was ready to go get my doctorate, and I chose to go to Pepperdine University. And I decided to study organizational leadership, which is basically like business leadership. And I started courses in August of 2012, and I had a stroke in September of 2012. And that set me back a semester, but I finished coursework and comprehensive exams by the spring of 2015. And then came the dissertation. I decided I really wanted to focus my research and my studies and expand my knowledge on a topic that I knew, that I was familiar with. And I wanted to analyze women in healthcare who'd climbed to the top of the corporate ladder. So I wanted to look at CEOs, chief medical officers, CFOs, and chief nursing officers. And I wanted to see what challenges or obstacles, if any, that they'd overcome on their careers journeys to get to the top. And I have to say, I think my study was absolutely fascinating. And I want to share the results with you. So, in conducting my research, I found that the healthcare field is 74% female, but only 11% of CEOs are female in healthcare. And I couldn't believe this. And I wanted to know what obstacles these women had overcome to get to their top level positions. And through my research, I found there were 4 main challenges or obstacles that these women had dealt with when it came to growing their careers. So the first challenge was raising a family, which we can pretty much all understand. Growing a career at the same time as raising a family is it's a difficult balancing act. And then the second challenge was that my participants were currently challenged. They weren't at a point where they were ready to retire, but they looked around the horizon and didn't see that they had any other options to growing their career. And then the third challenge that I found was gender. Now, I went into the research thinking that this would be the #1 challenge and that it would really be like the man was holding the women back. But really, more often than not, my participants spoke about women holding other women back. And they talked of dealing with female bullies in the workplace. And one participant, I'll never forget, I asked her if she'd had any female mentors, and she proceeded to laugh and said she didn't have any mentors, but she had tormentors. Now, that whole experience in itself is a whole other topic that we could go off on and talk about for so long. But we're going to do that at another time. But it is so sad to me. But really, I think women that feel like that have to keep other women down and not be happy for their advancements and their achievements are dealing with what my participants relate as their 4th challenge. And the 4th challenge was, surprisingly enough, that half of the participants that I spoke to talked to me about a lack of self-confidence. And I couldn't believe it. It occurred to me that here, these women had reached the pinnacle of their careers and still were dealing with a lack of confidence, and that they were opening up to me and talking about it. So at that point, I really began to think about it, and I was wondering, like, how many women are out there that are dealing with lack of confidence but aren't talking about it? And so that was what birthed the idea of me talking about it and beginning to get that conversation started with other women outside of my dissertation research. And so at that point, I started to do more research on confidence. And I wanted to know what all information was, quote unquote, out there to help people who were searching for ways to boost their confidence. And I registered and attended a webinar that was conducted by someone who's very prominent in social media. I thought that she probably had the market cornered and would be able to put out all this amazing content, and I would be stopped dead in my tracks from going any further in the journey. And honestly, I had lacked my own self-confidence in what I knew I needed to be doing, which was opening up this message and getting the conversation started with women around the world. So I attended this confidence webinar that was put on by this high-profile person, and let's just say I was appalled, to put it lightly. She was discussing her view of confidence and saying that if you are an introvert, which according to the definition just means you are shy, that you are making those around you uncomfortable. And she even went on to say that you are never to say you are an introvert ever again. And I could not believe my ears. I was absolutely horrified that this was the message going out to women. And I believe it's wrong. And it's wrong because it's a lie. It sends a message telling women that being who they inherently are means they are flawed. And I believe it also means that they'll have less confidence because they aren't able to embrace and accept the unique and wonderful way they're created. And the painful reality of believing this lie is that you will never measure up to somebody else's skewed expectations of who you should be. And it's a trap. And it's ultimately more harmful than good if you are an introvert and don't fit into this mold of what this person believes is acceptable. And honestly, when I started thinking about it, I was just like, this is no different than her being that female bully people were talking about. And really, just because you're an extrovert doesn't mean you automatically have confidence. So she's basically telling people that they aren't acceptable to themselves or to her the way they are. And this is a horrible message, and I'm not going to allow it to be the only message out there for women. Because this is the message going out to women, and I so strongly believe it is wrong on so many levels. I'm committed to setting the story straight. And I want to meet women right where they are and deal with what they are going through internally. First of all, I want them to know that they are not alone. And secondly, I want to give them encouragement and support to know that they do not have to continue to feel the way they have been. And there's help. And it's me. And third, I want to break down the 7 steps to boosting confidence in women. So now is the time I want you to get out your action sheet. But before we get into that, does anyone have any questions? If so, you just type it in the chat box right there on the right, and I'll be able to see it. Okay. So let's get started on the 7 steps to boosting your confidence. So I hope you have time to get out your action guide, because step 1 is identifying your negative self-talk. So I want you to face it. Let's all face it. We all have that voice that resides in our heads, and it speaks to us constantly in life. And that voice, that can be your best friend or your own worst enemy. But let's be honest, self-talk most of the time is negative. So let's look at the reality of believing this negative self-talk. And let's identify why it's bad. First of all, listening to these lies about yourself can lead to feelings of depression and anger and anxiety. And it can cause a negative spiral in thinking and feeling and result in you feeling like you've just dug a hole so far deep that you can't get out of it. Think about how that voice is speaking to you on a consistent basis. Would you let it talk to your best friend or your sister or your mom or your daughter that way? Then I want to know, like, why are you allowing it to talk to you that way? Think about what that voice is saying negatively to you. And when you get a chance, I want you to use your action guide and write down the 3 things you hear your voice in your head say to you, negative or positive. And after you're done, reflect on what you wrote and ask yourself, Is that true? Then if that thought is negative, I want you to write a more empowering, positive, inspirational thought that you can tell yourself, and then write that down next on your action guide. And if you can't think of one, then I want you to look at what you've already written and write something that is true of you. So, for example, if you wrote, I am fat, write on the second line, I am beautiful. And if you wrote, I'm not smart enough, I want you to change it to, I am freaking brilliant because I am damn creative. So write 3 powerful, positive statements about yourself that you can reflect on when that voice tells you the lies. So I want you to realize that that voice will still be there. But now I want you to focus on turning that voice into one that is your friend and encourager. Make your negative thoughts positive. There is so much power in positive affirmations. The positives of identifying your negative self-talk and changing it into positives are so incredible. You'll have increased happiness, increased feelings of self-worth, and improved self-esteem. You'll begin to have courage and confidence and believe in yourself. And I have some great tools that can help you with this too. For one, when you hear yourself talking negatively, then I want you to fact check what you're saying. Ask yourself, what is my evidence for believing in this thought? And then ask, what's my evidence against believing this thought? And ask yourself, am I jumping to negative conclusions? And then ask, how can I find out if my thoughts are really true? So step 2 is maintain a positive support network. Who do you surround yourself with? Do you have people in your life that will encourage, inspire, and positively support you? I hope so, because they can make all the difference in the world for you. The consequences of having negative people in your life are so far-reaching. They can hold you back from believing in yourself and your dreams, and they can keep you from achieving your God-given potential. Let me tell you a story. When I got the idea to start Kids Care Therapy, I had so many people in my life tell me not to do it. And they would all spout out all these statistics of how many businesses fail in the first year. And then they would remind me of the very obvious fact that I was pregnant. And like I told you, I even had a business consultant that I was wanting to pay to tell me how to do it. And he told me twice not to do it. But I had a burning desire that would not go away. And I also had a really supportive husband who believed in me and what I could accomplish. And thank God I didn't believe all the negative. Our Kids Care wouldn't exist, and we wouldn't be able to provide jobs to over 300 people across the state. So I want to make this personal for you. So if you have people on Facebook or other social media sites that are negative, then block them, unfriend them, hide their activity, do what you have to do, but separate yourself from them. Only surround yourself with positive affirmations, because you choose what and who you allow in your life. So look now on your action guide and see that it's got 6 boxes. Then later, when you have time, on the left side, write down the top 3 people in your life that are your biggest influencers, either positive or negative, either one. And then in the boxes on the right-hand side, write if they are positive influencers, negative influencers, or if they're neutral. And reflect on the people you are allowing in your life and consider how they are affecting you and your thoughts and your decisions. The people in your life, including your well-intentioned family members, can bring you down and make you feel worse than you already do. And I encourage you to set boundaries. You really have to have a good, supportive, healthy relationships that build you up and inspire you to be a better person. And boundaries are key to ensuring you have healthy relationships with friends and family and work and just basically any relationship you have. And remember, it should be a privilege to be a part of your life. It's not a right. And if you have people that should all over you in your relationship, then consider how they are helping you be a better person. If they are helping inspire you to reach your goals, then fantastic. But if they aren't, then let them go should on somebody else. Now the next step 3, is identify your talents and accomplishments and write them down and take pride in them. Everyone has a unique gifting and something they are good at. What are your unique giftings? What are the things that make you, you? So many people go through life without realizing their unique gifts, either because they don't think that they have them or they haven't attempted to figure out what they are. When you don't realize your gifts and your talents and your accomplishments, you're allowing yourself to not take credit for things you have achieved. And as a result, it can lead you to believe that you haven't accomplished much, which can destroy your confidence. Identifying your gifts and talents and accomplishments are going to help you determine you are more worthy than you realize. A positive result of identifying what your gifts, talents, and accomplishments are would be that you would visually realize and see on paper what you've done. And this will help boost your confidence because you can't deny the truth of what you've accomplished. So guess what? That's what you're going to do. When you have a second on your action guide, I want you to identify what you're good at because it is your unique gifting. And it's what makes you special and authentic and incredibly unique. And list the first 5 talents you can think of. And then I want you to identify 5 of your accomplishments up to this point in your life and reflect on them. And write them down on your action guide and include as many specifics as you can. Write everything you can think of, regardless of how big or small you may think it is. So, like, I made it to a meeting on time. If you are chronically late and you made it to a meeting on time, that's a freaking accomplishment, and be proud of it. But I believe we all have reasons to be here and purposes to contribute to society. And I want you to consider these questions. What are your purposes? What are you good at? What do you wake up for every day? And if you don't know, then let's work together to figure it out because you have something to offer. And then step number 4 is learn to accept compliments. Do you know that accepting compliments is a direct reflection and result of how we love ourselves? When you deny a compliment, you're actually underrating and undervaluing yourself. And the negative consequences of denying compliments are that you send a message that you aren't worthy to the person giving the compliment and to yourself. And the positive consequences of accepting compliments are that you can hear and begin to realize some of your strengths and your accomplishments or your attributes. So I want you to think about it for a minute. How do you accept compliments? Do you deny them and not allow the message to really soak in? So basically you totally ignore it? Or do you shoot back with a, well, thanks, but, and try to justify why you aren't worthy of receiving it? Or what about getting a compliment about something you've recently accomplished, and then you come back at the person with a bunch of compliments on everything they've done really well too? Or what about hearing a compliment but automatically combating it with deflection? Like you're at this party and someone you've never met tells you how amazing your shirt is. And then you automatically shoot back with how you found it on the clearance rack. For some of us, compliments are harder to accept than they are to give. Why is that? Well, it could be because we don't think we're worthy. Or it could also be because we've been conditioned to believe that accepting praise makes us less than humble. Can you think back to a time that you've given a compliment and the person discounted it and basically didn't accept it? How did that make you feel? So later, when you have time, I want you to consider how you react to compliments. And on your action guide, I want you to write down how you react. I know they're hard to accept because this is one I struggle with as well. But I want you to learn to hear them and take them in and digest them and say thank you sincerely. And that is all. Honestly, like I said, this is one of the harder ones for me to do. But I'm working on it, and I won't tell you to do anything I'm not willing to work on either. So let's work on it together. And step number 5, stop comparing yourself to others. Comparing yourself to others is a setup for failure before you even begin. Have you ever heard the saying, compare leads to despair? Now, the consequences for comparing yourself to others can result in depression, feelings of lack of accomplishment, feelings of anger, resentment, and envy that someone got something in life that you didn't. And the positives for not comparing yourself to others is that you become comfortable and confident in your own skin. You begin to celebrate who you are and who you were created to be. Because the only person you need to be better than is the person that you were yesterday. Are you on social media? I want you to consider that the posts you see are everyone else's highlight reels, and we most often compare our worst to their best. So stop comparing your life to everyone else's perfectly promoted house or child, accomplishment, life, promotion, spouse, friends, whatever. It's not your reality, and probably, honestly, isn't their reality either. Comparisons are a losing battle, and you will never win it. I remember growing up when I was comparing myself to others or to my friends, my stepmom would tell me, she would say, Courtney, someone will always be more than, and someone will always be less than. Someone will always be prettier, taller, thinner, smarter, or whatever, and someone will always be less than. And it's so true. And I want you to consider that now. Think for a minute the areas in life that you compare yourself to other people. Is it relationships, careers, accomplishments, finances, height, weight, all of the above? So when you have a minute, on your action guide, I want you to write down 5 characteristics about you that you want to focus on instead. Do you have incredible blue eyes? Or are you a great organizer? I want you to identify your incredibleness and write it down. I know what mine would be. I have an obnoxious, magnetic laugh. I will laugh and people will just look at me like I'm crazy. But you know what? That's what makes me unique. And I want you to go forth confidently, knowing that you are wonderfully and uniquely created. And you have a purpose to walk in. And you will never be able to live out your purposes if you're trying to fill the purposes of someone else. And now step 6, avoid the desire to be perfect. On your action guide, really quick, I want you to identify the amount of perfect people you know. Do you know any perfect people? Neither do I. It's hard in the society that we live in not to feel the need to strive to be perfect, but that's a trap. If perfection existed, then things like airbrushing and editing and Photoshop, we wouldn't need them. The desire to be perfect is dangerous because it can paralyze you and keep you from even making attempts to accomplish your goals. And the negatives to continuing to attempt to be perfect are that you're going to be paralyzed with fear and inability to act on the things that you want to do. And you will lose out on living a life that is worthy and messy and wonderful and fun. And the positives to letting go of the nagging internal desire to be perfect are that you're going to realize that you are enough right where you are. You're going to see that you are worthy of love and of happiness. So later on your action guide, I want you to write down 3 goals you have. And then below that, I want you to identify the first steps you're going to take to accomplish each of those goals. I want you to learn to work on being proud of completing a job well done, and that'll help you gain a more confident version of your best self. Remember, perfectionism is not equivalent to striving to be our best. Perfectionism is just a shield that keeps us from growth and healthy achievement. And action is the only way to get results, which is why I want you to identify first steps to accomplishing your goals. And now I want you to set a time frame that you're going to take that first step. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 1 week or 2 weeks, but don't make it so far away that you talk yourself out of it. If you are too busy, worried about perfection, which is impossible, then you will be too distracted and busy to act. And now we've come to our last step. Practice gratitude. Gratitude is the act of acknowledging who and what you have in your life and being thankful for them. What's the negative impact of not practicing gratitude and not being grateful for the blessings that you have? Well, for one, gratitude is directly related to happiness. And not being grateful for the blessings in your life can lead to unhappiness, depression, anxiety, materialism, self-centeredness, and the list goes on. And then the positive impact of practicing gratitude is increased optimism, increased appreciation for the gifts in life, and increased self-esteem, more happiness. Studies even show that you're more energetic, more relaxed, more resilient, and even have better sleep and deeper relationships and improved decision-making skills. Practicing gratitude is making a conscious commitment to actively being thankful and not just sitting around and waiting to feel gratitude. So how could you actively engage in practicing gratitude? Well, I'm so glad you asked. I have a few suggestions, and you can add to your action guide. And you can do this now, or you can do it later. But for one, you could create a gratitude journal of the good things that have happened to you each day or each week. Or you could write a letter of gratitude to someone in your life. Or you could post inspirational quotes around to see. They even have an app, and it's called Inspirational and Motivational Quotes, and it sends you a quote every day to inspire you. And then there's also an app. It's called Happify, Happify, and it gives you games to help increase your levels of gratitude and happiness for the blessings you have. Or you could even handwrite thank you notes and give them to people, or even mail them. God, imagine that, and bills in the mail. They'd be happy just for that. You could also create a running list of all the things you have to be grateful for and read it every day. Or you could even write down the compliments that you receive. And that would help you work on accepting compliments and being grateful for those things that you've gotten complimented on. I mean, really, there's so many more ways that you can practice gratitude. And I encourage you to just pick one and try it tomorrow. In fact, do that now. Pick which one you want to focus on tomorrow, and I want you to commit to doing that on your action guide. All right, guys, now we've discussed, and I want to summarize our time together. I told you a little bit about myself and my journey from being a single teenage mom to now owning a successful company. And just know that that was not an easy overnight journey. If anything, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But no journey that's worth anything ever comes easy. But I stuck to my path and what my purpose was, and I did the work and I made it happen. And I can help you do the same. And now we've covered my 7 confidence boosters for women. And to recap and summarize, they are: number 1, identify your negative self-talk. 2, maintain a positive support network. 3, identify your talents, write them down, and take pride in them. And 4, learn to accept compliments. And 5, stop comparing yourself to others. And 6, avoid the desire to be perfect. And 7, practice gratitude. And I've given you some practical examples of ways to master these powerful tools, because these tools will help you begin your journey of increasing your courage and your confidence levels, which are proven to increase your happiness and fulfillment in life. So in the beginning of the webinar, I told you I'd provide you with lots of actionable content, and I hope that you feel that I've done that. I also told you that if you wanted to go further and identify a deeper solution, that I would tell you how. And I'm excited to introduce to you guys all my 8-week course called Conquering Confidence. So here's my promise to you. I'm committed to working one-on-one with just 3 people to help them powerfully increase their confidence. And we're going to work together to assess where you are and what's holding you back from achieving unlimited confidence in your money, in your body, in your relationships, and spiritually. And then we're going to work together every week for 8 weeks to build your confidence in those areas using the steps that I've talked about. And I want to share with you a story about a client that I've been working with. I wanted to have her on, and it's funny because I wanted her to tell you in person the transformation she's experienced during our time working together, but she's in Ireland and it's like 2 in the morning or something there now. But when we started, she saw herself as only a mom, just floating in space, and she had difficulty focusing on anything other than her family. But now, after working together for just a short time, she sees herself and her worth as so much more. And she's now creating a life of happiness for herself and for her family. So let's think about it. Like a lack of confidence shows up in all aspects of life and not just one area. And it limits how we think, how we feel, how we act, what we say, basically everything we believe about ourselves. And you've joined me today because there's something that connected with you. So let's get deeper and get some resolutions for you. In my 8-week course, Conquering Confidence, will walk you through step by step the solutions to life-enhancing personal growth with me as your personal guide, coach, and mentor. And throughout the 8 weeks together, you'll have personal accountability to help you take ownership of your choices and your behaviors and your actions. And you're going to have access to me, and not only limited to our 8 60-minute sessions, but whenever you need it. You're going to have access to a private Facebook community where you can engage with others who are on the journey with you. But most importantly, you're going to have results, including skills that you'll use throughout your whole life. So that's what I'm offering, an 8-week coaching course aimed at massively increasing your self-confidence. And like I said, it's going to include accountability, access, community, and best of all, results, personal results for you. So here's what you need to do next. You need to email me at Courtney@CourtneyBaker.com. And there's no U in Courtney. So Courtney@CourtneyBaker.com. And let me know that you're serious and ready to make 2016 your best year yet. Now remember, my schedule will only allow me to work with 3 people right now. And I'm committed to the first 3 people who I feel are a good fit for the program and that I'm able to personally walk with them on their journey. So let's do this. Let's work together. And I promised you all I'd set aside some time to answer questions And I want to make good on that promise. So does anyone have any questions? And just type them in the chat and I'll respond. And anytime, like if it comes up, just type it in and I'll get it. So a lot of the time when I'm talking about confidence, I get asked about setting family boundaries. And people feel that setting boundaries with family members is just, it's next to impossible. And I get that. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it is possible. And I think you have to determine what healthy boundaries look like for you. Because my boundaries look very differently than the boundaries that are going to work for you. But I will help you determine what healthy boundaries are for you and set them and work with you while you set them and you maintain them. And then another thing I get asked a lot of is that people think that because they are introverts and that I'm an extrovert, but that they think that what I'm teaching and talking about wouldn't work for them. And I've heard people say that. And I want to first tell you that it doesn't matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert, because I'm not going to go down that road. I'll let someone else talk about introverts and extroverts, but because confidence comes from within, and your personal goals, gifts, and abilities are what make you unique and special. And your gifts and abilities are not mine, and my gifts and abilities are not yours. And you have the capacity to determine what success looks like for you. And I want to help you on that journey. Because honestly, being an introvert or an extrovert has no bearing on what I'm teaching. Let's see. Oh, I see there are some questions, but I can't see them. So AJ, can you tell me what they are?
Yeah, Courtney. So there's a question from Tanya. Tanya is saying, can you restate the way to learn to accept compliments? From saying like from now on I will. So like how Tanya's wanting like to know like how does she accept compliments a little bit better? Can you just kind of rephrase that for her?
Oh, sure. So yeah, when someone gives you a compliment, so we talked about the ways that people don't. So like, do you deny them, or do you shoot back with a thanks but, or do you shoot back with, oh, well, but you did such and such so great? Or do you hear the compliment but combat it with deflection, like, oh, I found it on the clearance rack? But I want you, when you hear them, I want you to take them in and digest them and say thank you sincerely. Did that answer you? Let me know.
Awesome. And there's one more from, I'm totally going to butcher this name. I'm going to do my very best. Anjali, I believe. And her question is, do you have any quick tips or tools to increase confidence before an interview?
Okay, yes, I absolutely do. Have you ever heard of these things called power poses? Power poses, if you look up, Google power poses, but also I want you to look at when you identify your talents and accomplishments and write them down, reflect on that and look at what you have done and accomplished, and go into that interview and be like, I'm going to rock this because I have accomplished X, Y, and Z, and I own that. This is something I did so good. And I want you to reflect on that before you go into your interview and build yourself up. Any more?
Let me do a quick refresh. I think that's all of the questions actually at this moment in time, actually.
Okay. Let me talk about this. Another thing I've heard a lot of people say is that they don't have the money to do whatever it is that they want to accomplish, and therefore they lack confidence in themselves. But for the record, that is a lie that you're telling yourself, and you are buying into it. And I want to push back on that and tell you that you can't buy confidence with money or success. And because we've already discussed my journey, and remember, I was newly married, pregnant, and only a year out of college. We were buried in student loan debt and living in just this little tiny apartment well, you saw, we had no money, but I had a dream. And despite the circumstances, you can choose to be confident right where you are. Don't allow that lie to consume you anymore and keep you from living a life of fulfillment. So I often get, if we don't have any more questions, and I want to make sure that I told you guys I would be done at 8. So I often get asked what the next steps are, and that's easy. Just contact me at Courtney@CourtneyBaker.com. And we're going to go through the 7 steps and see where you are on each of them. And then we're going to create an actionable plan. And I'm just wondering, like, are you ready to stop believing the lies and start living into your purpose and having a fulfilled, confident life? And if so, then I want you to reach out to me. Okay, guys, if we don't have any more questions, I want to wrap up. I thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. And I want to honor my commitment that I would be through with our training in less than an hour. So it's we got 8 minutes, and I made good on my promise. So thanks for being with me, and I hope you all have a great rest of your night. And I look forward to talking to you soon. All right, thanks, guys.
She didn't hit stop broadcast. And I can't do that because she didn't hit stop broadcast. And I can't do that because